If there's one word to summarize ESG, I would like to say that it is resilient. Resilient is the word to encompass what ESG is all about. Well, many people actually forgotten what ESG is all about. ESG, environment, social, and governance. Very often we only look at emission targets. When we think about ESG, we are thinking about emission targets and nothing else. We're thinking about how to cut down emission, how to do sustainability in its environmental context, but forgetting that there is also S and G. So we should take all this together and to build a resilient framework for our society. And a resilient framework for our society means we have to do ESG more, we have to double down on it, we have to do even deeper reforms in order to really deal with the questions of E, S, and G. At the core of this discussion about ESG is actually the role of corporations. The role of corporations in this time and age. For about 50 years from the 70s up to COVID, there was this belief that the only purpose of a corporation is to make profit, arising from Milton Friedman's argument of shareholder economy. That the only purpose of a corporation is just to satisfy the needs for shareholder to make profit and nothing else. And that Milton Friedman idea affected particularly the Anglo-Saxon world, but beyond. And we are actually, there are many people who think this way. But that era has ended. World Economic Forum, at the turn of the decades, as well as Business Forum, Business Roundtable in the United States, talks about stakeholder economy and trying to bring the idea of stakeholder back to the questions of the purpose of a corporation. That the corporation has to think about its customer, the corporation has to think about their workers, the corporations have to think about the environment and the larger and the society at large. And I think that is a very important reminder. When we talk about ESG, we are talking about ESG in the context of a stakeholder economy. That means the corporations are not just an entity that has only one bottom line. It may have double bottom line, it may have triple bottom lines. And I think that is an important point that we should all remember. And what is about this global disorder? I like the quote that Weiwei quoted. I've been telling friends, yes, we are dealing with global disorder, but it is also perhaps a time for us to shape to a certain extent. Knowing the limitations of a small nation, of a nation that is not really big, but also knowing the power of ideas and knowing that we may have a chance to reshape our domestic framework and structure, while at the same time shape the world to a certain extent. We are now in a situation where we are dealing with a once in a generation or maybe once in 80-year shift. For the last 80 years, Asian societies grew rich by exporting to the United States. It started with Japan, post-war Japan, followed by the four dragons in the 60s and 70s, Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Korea. And then followed by the four tiger cubs, Malaysia, Thailand, the Philippines, and Indonesia, followed by Vietnam and China. All this society grew rich by exporting to the United States. And that whole idea of export-led industrialization actually presupposes that we press down wages, we compete without thinking about the environment, and at times we compete to destroy our environment in order to export to the United States. But we have now grown our technologies, we have now become so advanced in our technologies and also in terms of the development of our society, we've come to a stage where we can actually do a lot more. But at the same time, that whole idea that we are competing to export to the United States and by all means, by destroying our environment, by pressing down wages, is still in our mind. But suddenly the United States say that I don't want you to export to me, or at least I don't want you to export so much to me. And this is not new. There was Trump one, and in terms of trade policies, the Biden administration is now seems to us more like Trump 1.5, and now it is Trump 2. We will have to accept that the world that is to come will not have the United States as the only consumer of the last resort and the consumer of the first resort. We have to accept that idea that we have to create market. That means we cannot just rely on an export-led industrialization strategy with the purpose of exporting to the United States. We as in the rest of the world, including Europe, will have to now create markets, create consumers. And the most important or the best way to create consumer is to create a middle class in your society. And this is where China was quite successful in creating a middle class. When China joined WTO in 2001, China had only about 100 million population as middle class. Today, by any measurement, at least 400 million Chinese are considered middle class. Imagine that we can replicate that in ASEAN, in which we'll have more ASEAN people considered middle class. And by middle class, I mean people who have discretionary spending, or whose disposable income allowed them to have discretionary spending. And to be honest, if you look at the data, you look at the what they call statistic, in ASEAN, only Singapore, the Greater Kuala Lumpur, and to an extent, Greater Jakarta has some, or maybe Bangkok, has some form of middle class. Outside all these major cities, there is no strong middle class among our midst. But moving forward, we will have to see a richer ASEAN. We will have to hopefully see a richer India, a richer South Asia, and with potentially a more prosperous Africa and other regions such as South America and the Arab world. Then we will have sustainable future. We will have a different world order in which there are more markets, but each of us, we will have to start creating market by creating a middle class. And that will mean that we will have to change the way we look at wages. We have to change the way we look at costs. I want to take this opportunity to commend and to praise the effort of the GLCs and particularly the GLICs. Over the weekend, the GLICs have, led by Khazanah, has announced that they are going to pay a living wage of 3,100 ringgit to all their employees. I think this is a major step by the GLICs to take on this responsibility of creating a more sustainable society and to fulfill the S part of ESG. I want all of you to give them an applause. And during the Labor Day address by Prime Minister, and also the song that was launched or written by Stephen Sim, Minister of Human Resources, Prime Minister committed that we really need to think about workers, because workers is the foundation of our society. And I hope all of you to think through that this is a national purpose to create a strong society, a resilient society, both in terms of E, S, and G. And over the last weekend, there were quite a few elections. Quite a few elections around the world, and recently you saw in Canada, you saw in Australia, you saw in Singapore. I think this is also a time that societies react to the disorder, global disorder. And the society is reacting by basically saying that you need competent governments, you need a safe pair of hands, and you need strong institutions. And this is where I think it's important for us to think about how to create stronger institutions domestically, the G part of ESG, and so that we can actually build resilient against changes and have a hand to shape the world that is to come. I want to end with coming back to the questions of E. We should start thinking about a different way of looking at the E. Many people see, or the way we articulate in Malaysia is that whatever you do for the E is a cost. Recently, I have chats with friends who are dealing with energy transition. I think the way we frame energy transition is wrong. We're talking about energy trilemma as if it's a problem. But to achieve what we should achieve, it should be triple objective. We should do sustainability, affordability, security all at once. Because the technologies are there. The cost is not high. And we will, as long as we also manage demand, we manage demand properly, we project demand properly, we manage the equation well. We should be able to achieve all objectives at once. And I hope we will rethink how we do energy transition. We'll do more, we'll double down. The objective of national energy transition is good, and we should really double down to make sure that it happens. But to make sure that it happens, we will have to be bold and to say that it is not a dilemma, it's not a trilemma, it's actually an objective that we want to achieve. The technologies are there. We have not actually rolled out rooftop on our houses enough. We should do more, we should double down on it so that we can achieve all these purposes together. And I want to also talk about cities. There are developers here. There are GLC Link developers. It's time for us to rethink about cities. We have been having this sprawl towards the outskirts, and this sprawl towards building landed property everywhere else except the city. But in order for us to deal with the E part, we have to bring people back to the city, reduce carbon emission by getting more people off cars, so that we can repurpose cities like Kuala Lumpur, inner cities like Kuala Lumpur, which is actually dilapidated at night, but very active in the morning. We should start thinking about a new model of dealing with cities, and I hope the corporations, particularly developers, will rethink our development model so that we can actually do the E together. In summary, as I say, ESG is about resilience. And in time of disorder, we need to build resilience so that we can shape, to a certain extent, the global order. Thank you.
Thank you, Liew. Can you please remain on stage?